What's up, guys? Wes Savage recording live. Today, I want to talk about a little bit about the Mediterranean diet. A little bit. What is the Mediterranean diet? Simply, it is a diet that a dietary guideline that was formulated based on what based on their studying they started back. And this idea goes far back as 1960 when they were studying how they would eat and the traditional foods that people would eat in countries like Italy and Greece as back then. Researchers noticed that these people were exceptionally healthy compared to the American people at this time. They had a low risk of many killer diseases. Numerous studies have shown that the Mediterranean diet can cause weight loss and help prevent heart attacks, strokes, type 2 diabetes, and premature death, as well from various other factors, and just premature death as a whole. What are the basics? What's the Mediterranean basics? Vegetables, all kinds. Vegetables of all kinds. Occasional fruits, plenty of nuts and seeds and beans and legumes, potatoes, occasional whole grains, breads, seasoning with a lot of herbs and spices, consuming portions of fish and seafood, plenty of extra virgin olive oil, and eating in moderation. Poultry, as long as it's pastured, it's good. Eggs, if they're omega-3 fortified or pastured. Cheese and yogurt, as long as the cheese and yogurt are full fat and grass-fed, or come from grass-fed milks. And if you do drink milk, it's best if it's sheep's milk or goat's milk. If you want to do like the Arabs in the Middle East, which is not what this diet would be about, really, it would be camel milk, and you'd still be following the principle, but you'd be shying away a little bit. Rarely eat red meat as from at most once a week to a minimum of a few times a month. And red meat, you're better off if you're over here in the U.S. You're shying away from just a teensy bit more butt. Would be better off with grass-fed, like bison, or getting some wild game. Wild game has been hunted all over every culture in the planet. It's hunted for wild game. Why? Because it's a shit ton better than factory farm-bred meats. So some of the possibilities with it are counterbalanced due to having higher omega-3 fatty acids, being clean as a whole, and stuff like that. Plus, liver and heart from venison and stuff is pretty decent too. It's the cleanest organs in the body. So that also serves as a nutrient source. It's a source of easy access, source of vitamin A, and bones can be used to make bone broth. So cleaner bone broth than what you can buy from beef bones from a factory farmed, feedlotting, fed, freaking slaughtered cows at a fucking Walmart. Basically eating trash is what I'm saying. Versus that stuff. And if you eat pork, it needs to be pastured and finished on acorns, chestnuts, hazelnuts, or any of these with additions of olive pulp and chia seeds. Why? Because that makes higher amounts of omega-3s and heart healthy monounsaturated fats, and with some olive pulp added in there, you might have some olorapine metabolite or something in there. I'm just hypothesizing, but you'd be recycling the byproduct of olive pressing, and the pork would still be healthier either way, with or without it. It's just something to make better use of. Recycling the waste from your olive oil pressing. So that's what I would say when it comes to red meats. And do not consume these sugar sweetened drinks, added sugars, processed meats, refined grains, refined oils, and other highly processed foods. Refined oils can include soybean oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil, and others. Processed meats like processed sausages, hot dogs, weenies, bratwurst, whatever, any of those. Unless you made the sausage yourself and it's not processed like what you buy at a store, that's a different thing. But still, that would be in the rarely eaten red meat category. Anything labeled low fat or diet, or looks like it was made in a factory. No margarines, no white bread, no pasta made with refined wheat, no trans fats. So that's a lot of peanut butter brands. You got to cut that out as a whole, pretty much, because almost the peanut butter brands have some type of hydrogenated fat to keep oil from separating out, the natural peanut oil, to emulsify and bind it, keep it from separating out. No, and sodas, candy, ice cream. Unless you made like a low carb ice cream that had grass fed dairy in it and pastured eggs involved or something like that. Once in a while treat at best, and many other things, and table sugar. Those are the kind of things you'd avoid. But when it comes to ice cream, those have to be your condition, like a low carb type of ice cream that would taste all right to you, and was made with grass fed dairy and pastured eggs, like the French custard or French ice cream kind of deal. Something like that. That would be your exception, but still once in a while treat. So, yeah. So there you go. That's your basic plan. You pretty much just pretty much do that. Primary plant-based foods. You get all kinds of vegetables, occasional fruits, all kinds of beans and nuts and seeds. Nuts would be your main stack. Occasional whole grains and breads and stuff. Replacing butter with the olive oil as the main as the main cooking fat. Now, if you were to use like grass-fed butter, it'd have to be rare. It'd have to be grass-fed as well. That'd be a little more rare. Using herbs and spices a lot more instead of just salt. So. In the poultry and fish idea, you'd have to at least be twice a week. At the very minimum, twice a week. And I already said about the red meat and went into detail about what red meats I would actually recommend, honestly. You also can drink, and what to drink, though? Red wine. Oh, yes. Red wine. But not like that. Not like in the video. No. Like a glass of the best red wine you can get a day. Coffee and actual like tea, like iced tea or something. But in my case, I make a real low glycemic sweet tea for me. Like very little raw honey and then stevia to sweeten it the rest of the way. Perfect for me. It works for me. I've adjusted to it and it works for me. So that kind of thing. Avoid sugar sweetened beverages like fruit juices and stuff like that. They're very high in sugar and it's just not good. The wine is completely optional because if you can't handle your alcohol, you don't need to touch it. But if you might be able to cook with it, just don't try to smell all the ethanol fumes as they come out of the pot. Don't be nuts. Don't try to get contact drunk. So anyway, let's move on. So you get the point, it's plant-based. Alright, so now we gave you the basic principles of the Mediterranean diet concept as a whole. Well, I'm going to tell you about go into detail and what's the basic principles and talk about two countries in the Mediterranean Sea around it. Sardinia, Italy, and Ikaria, Greece. I'm going to tell you what their Mediterranean diets have in common, major things they do in their diets, things they have in common with the other blue zones, and their differences. Here we go. Number one. Like the Mediterranean diet, the basic one, they eat plant-based diets that are low glycemic and still include meats of much higher quality than most Americans raise and indulge on. I already explained about the red meat, my opinion. Wild game and pastured and fattened to finish it in a certain manner. You already get my point. 2, they still include dairy and then specifically it's milk, goat's milk, sheep's milk, the cheeses, and those are all grass-fed. This gives them way higher omega-3 fatty acids. They still have it a little bit every day. They make the pecorino romano from this and stuff like that. If you're in Sardinia and Italian, that's where your best pecorino romano will come from, is Sardinia, Italy. It's got to be grass-fed, or if you want it to be experimental, grass and hemp-fed. But the point is, it's got to be grass-fed dairy. Sheep's milk, goat's milk, A2 casein cow milk that would grass-fed. That would substitute regular conventional milk unless you wanted to have, And if you wanted to shy away from it a little bit, you can use, if you had camels to farm, you had a little camel milk. There's your grass-fed pastured camel milk. There you go. Lots of vegetables and occasional fruits as treats. They have really high amounts of polyphenols due to this reason. Number 4. Like, as I was saying, they have high amounts of polyphenols for this reason, and reason number 5. This one, though, I'm going to list as they consume a lot of extra virgin olive oil because it's monounsaturated fats, and it gives you access to aleuropine, which is basically a really badass polyphenol. And there's studies about it in heart and endothelial function, so there's some studies that were found about it, and they've been promoted. So, number 5. They consume red wine that's so dark it fits the saying that people who enjoy interracial sex would probably already be thinking, the darker the better. Those red wines are so dark they are almost solid black. But in this case, and for the case of people who enjoy interracial sex, I have not had sex, so I wouldn't know. I'm a virgin. I keep a choice of chastity in it, but I'm not racist. Don't worry. I'd fuck all comers like Quagmire if I were to be a man hoe. So, in this saying that, so in this case, saying a bit, I'm so right. That, my good people, not only is that a fucked up joke, but to use to emphasize on this. But the point, the reason the wine, like especially the Sardinian Italian red wine, is so dark because they're exposed to the sun. They were made to adapt to that environment, and that causes them to make more high amounts of polyphenols and the antioxidant resveratrol, much higher in these blackish red wines. And with eating with food like they do, a glass or 2, sometimes 3 or 4 a day, boosts the assimilation of them. 6, they don't eat when their stomachs are 80% full to avoid weight gain. That's just like every other blue zoner. Just about. 7, they eat their smallest meals in the late afternoon or evening. 8, Sardinians drink a tea made from an herb called milk thistle, which is strongly hepatoprotective and renoprotective. Shane Ellison, Dove People's Chemist, has talked about this herb, and he holds it in high regards, as do I. Based on the research anyway. 9, Icarian Greeks drink herbal teas such as sage, thyme, mint, dandelion, and chamomile, and each one of those have their specific uses. 10, they keep their omega-3 fatty acids up, besides the grass-fed goats and sheep's dairy, by eating wild-caught seafood and fish of very different kinds in a minimum of a few times a week. That's their main animal protein. This dispersed amongst a lot of plant food. 11, they only, like I said about red meats, just like in the actual dietary principle itself, they eat red meats on certain occasions, like a few times a month to maybe once a week at the very most. And it's of a better, like I said, a better quality. 12, the Icarians, and I think Sardinians too, but I don't remember exactly, consume raw honey, which has antioxidant and prebiotic properties to counterbalance the sugar content, as well as the traces of bee pollen and propolis, which if you go onto the Dove People's Chemist website, when he talks about honey, he mentions about how the bee pollen and propolis traces in it trigger a system of responses in your body called hormesis, which have a series of benefits. talks about it. He's also a registered MSc degree, organic chemist that used to work for pharmacies, and he quit. Now he's a natural way of healing promoter, bigger than ever. Their raw thyme honey of the Ikarians, is good sweetener. That's the big form of raw honey that I think they have to consume is thyme honey. I think. I could be wrong. It could be that and others, but still, they consume raw honey there as a sweetener. 13. They consume lots of different nuts, which are real good fat and protein sources for an occasional snack. And for Christ's sakes, they're 80% protein. 80% fat calorie, I meant to say, which is not bad. It's healthy fats. 14. When they eat bread, they eat sourdough bread or specific kinds of whole grain flat bread. And the probiotic strains that in the sourdough starter convert some of the sugars and part of the gluten into lactic acid. Plus, that fermentation reduces lectins. Number 15. They drink purified water. Pure, clean, good water. Good tea, like actual tea, not just the herbal ones I mentioned. And good coffee. Now, the Greeks, they do it a little differently. They drink Greek-style coffee. That's what the Ikarians do. It's brewed by ideally using a solid brass inside and out, solid brass pot. What they do is they get a small pot, use powdered coffee grounds and big heaped spoons of put in there and fill it up with water, a certain amount, and they bring this into a boil over medium heat, and then when it comes to a foam head, they stir that foam head down to pop all the little bubbles. Put it back on the gas or the heat, make it bubble. Do that like about 3 or 4, maybe 5 times. Lift it up, put it back on to make it bubble. Lift it back up, do that. That extracts many cardioprotective antioxidants, and if you use solid brass with no lining inside the pot, you'll also have another side benefit. It'll neutralize some of the acids, including phosphoric acid naturally found in coffee due to zinc naturally in brass as an alloying agent, which is another great thing. I have a brass cooking pot, briki as they call it. I have one. I bought it for myself for $58 for Christmas, and it's the best investment I ever had. I don't even, if I want to, I'll use my espresso machine, but I don't need it. This works as a far more mellow substitute. Much more easy. Don't have the jitters. Because chlorogenic acid's probably another one. So, and it's from Olympic Trading Company. If I will tell you where to go, I will link it to you. I'm actually promoting these guys. They're fucking awesome. Their product works. It's great. I love it. I use Cafe Bustelo roast for mine, but still, it's a great cooking method. I'm going to continue on a few things. To add to point number 12. There are other good sweeteners besides raw honey. They're like Yukon root, stevia, and luhan guo, which is also called monk fruit. Now, when it comes to stevia, the best components are ribionoside A and ribionoside D, using a sweet-tasting prebiotic like the saccharides from Yukon root, isolated to a point that there's minimized chance of allergic reaction, because very few people have a Yukon root sensitivity. Very few, but still. Just to give you an idea. As a bulking agent, your guts will thank you. Your food, you love the food, taste of it. The food will love you back. Charaka, the physician Charaka and Hippocrates after him said, "Let thy food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be thy food." They are telling the truth. Follow what we would call the Hippocratic Oath of today in medicine. We need more of that. Okay, when it comes to point number 14, pre-soaking all grains grown for human consumption with probiotic bacteria, rinsing them off, pre-soaking them again, second time with baking soda solution to rinse off again before drying out to sell, would reduce lectin phytate as well, phytate and lectin content, which would improve the health of people all around. Unless you're gluten intolerant, then you need a low glycemic gluten-free flour with grains and stuff done, pre-soaked and done this way already before being prepared into it. And this would also make the sourdough bread even better for you, and the flatbreads made even better for you, because some of that stuff will be neutralized due to processing when you cook it as a flatbread. It's good things. And if you increase your polyphenols, like with the Gundry's Vital Red supplement, for instance, when you consume fruits, consume more really, really dark fruits like pomegranate, dark berries and stuff with polyphenols. You would load these methods in every type of bean you consume. Soak for 12 hours with probiotics like yogurt whey or something like that for probiotics to ferment the grain. To ferment the beans. Easy one. Rinse that off. Soak them again for another 12 hours to get within a baking soda containing solution to kill most of your phytates and lectins. That way, by the time you cook the beans, they'll be all gone. And that will still follow Dr. Gundry's method of trying to increase polyphenols and lower lectins. And according to his study that he presented to the American Heart Association in 2013, and he actually talked about a little bit, it would still follow that. By the way, I've mentioned these references to prove this point in my response to his 3 Foods to Avoid video, where I refute goji berries or Derpy Redneck and I refute about goji berries, but justify 100% wheatgrass, and then admitted while he's still right, you can help the problem a little bit from when it comes to soybeans, but still be careful if you're going to use them, especially if you're going to use like the Okinawa Japanese diet type of diet, Terry plan, if you were going to do it, especially that. So anyway, hope you enjoyed my talk about the Mediterranean diet. Hope it wasn't too long. I hope you enjoyed it, everyone. Hope I got my words out clearly for you. And I will see you guys around. I will put links, references and stuff in the description below as I find them again. Talk to you later. Take care. Hope you enjoy.